Beautiful is your rising in the horizon of heaven, living sun. You who were first at the beginning of things. You shine in the horizon of the east. You fill every land with your beauty. You are beautiful and great and shining.
The words of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh giving thanks for the sun, written more than 2,000 years ago. On the 11th of August 1999, that same sun was blotted out in the sky over Britain, the first total eclipse witnessed in this country for 72 years. Eclipse mania is nothing new. People have been queuing up across the ages to book their ringside seats for the greatest show on Earth. And throughout this century, news cameras have captured the moment. Eclipse 99 was no exception, and from the Scillies to Scotland, people took time off and turned their attention skywards. Thousands of people converged on Cornwall for the best view of the last total eclipse of the 20th century. Many took to the sea, hoping to experience the eclipse away from the crowds on land.
Please give generous.
And as people flocked to their different vantage points, thick cloud covered most of the southwest, where the eclipse was to be total.
I think it's going to be very cloudy when the thing starts, so that won't exactly encourage the people here. Maybe it won't, maybe the sun is poking out a bit now.
I suspect it's going to be cloudy, according to the forecast, but then the thing with Cornwall is it always has weather, so it fluctuates desperately all day long, so if we're lucky, it'll be nice.
What usually happens in the evenings when the sun goes down is a lot of the cloud tends to disappear anyway then. I wonder if it'll do the same during the eclipse period. We might lose some of the cloud and we might see a bit of it.
I don't rate the chances at all, really. It looks very thick cloud and, well, it's worth coming here anyway because it's such a beautiful place.
People have been drawn together by the mystical power of eclipses for centuries. Most ancient cultures have at some time or other featured the sun and the moon as an important part of their religion.
To the holy place of Kurukshetra, Hindus from all over India made the pilgrimage their religion enjoins on the day of the sun's eclipse. They believe that to undertake one such journey before they die earns them forgiveness of sins. All came prepared to sleep in the open on the night before the eclipse. Some wore masks in the likeness of Hindu gods. At prayer, covered in white ash, were several of the mendicant holy men, the sadhus. Thousands of people gathered on the banks of the sacred bathing places, the Sanihit and Brahmshah tanks. It was said that most of the 600,000 there would have immersed themselves during the 2.5 hours between the first appearance of the shadow of the sun and its complete passing over.
Hindu legend has it that if you take a dip during the solar eclipse or do a good deed, you are rewarded 1,000 times. This Pathé news footage shows Indians celebrating the sun's disappearance and reappearance back in 1961. And in 1999, stone circles draw pagans from all over the country to celebrate the most recent eclipse. Here at Menon Toll, near Penzance, in the pouring rain, the guardians of the stones perform their rituals in the run-up to totality.
By the Cornish community to provide a spiritual focus for the eclipse at Menon Toll.
For these pagans, the eclipse represents the marriage of the masculine sun deity to the female moon.
Confirming this, our sacred vow.
A solar eclipse happens somewhere in the world every time the orbiting moon lines up perfectly between the Earth and the Sun. On average, this happens once every 18 months. During an eclipse, the Sun and the Moon appear the same size, because although the Sun is 400 times as big as the Moon, it also happens to be 400 times further away. The shadow cast during a total eclipse is known as the zone of totality, and as the world spins, so the shadow travels over the Earth's surface. For hundreds of kilometers either side, the Moon only partially obscures the Sun. In 1999, the full shadow passed over the tip of Devon and Cornwall. The rest of the country saw a partial eclipse with up to 95% of the Sun's surface covered across the south of England. And over the years, scientists have perfected increasingly ingenious ways of capturing this momentous event for posterity.
Well, it is a solar projector rather than a telescope, which means it doesn't have an eyepiece, which would obviously, to use that would be dangerous and would damage your eyesight. And the projector projects an image of the sun onto a white card. And this means it's safe to photograph the white card rather than looking directly at the sun. The time now is 9:52. The partial phases of the eclipse start in approximately 5 minutes. So we're hoping for a bit of clear sky, which we haven't got at the moment, unfortunately.
And because of the cloud, the only view as the Moon begins its journey across the Sun is from a camera on board an RAF Hercules, flying nearly 30,000 feet above the Earth.
All I can say is it's been disrupting everything. We get disrupted anyway in the summer, but it's even worse than usual. I went up to North Devon the day before yesterday, and I was bombarded by caravans coming the other direction.
I think it's just something you want to experience, you know. Someone was saying the other day that it's like the only time you get to experience what it's like to be part of the solar system.
Bakers never, and the butchers never had a better time in all their lives, but they say it won't make any difference, it'll even itself out in the next month or so. But they're now working flat out to satisfy everybody.
It's coming from over Padstow, and it's going to come very fast, and then it will be plunged into pitch blackness.
I think some of the poor old Cornishmen thought they were going to make $1 million, and unfortunately people got frightened about coming down here because of the crowds and haven't booked properly in the guest houses and things, so you can imagine that they're a bit miffed about the whole thing.
although mentally you're prepared for it and you read all the newspapers and you watch TV and you know it's an eclipse, I think on a physical level it's going to be quite a shock to the system because your body is suddenly going to be presented with a situation it's never been presented with. And you know, there's always a slight unease exactly, you know, how you're going to feel at that point.
The last total eclipse on mainland Britain was back in 1927. The sun was blotted out for just 25 seconds, and the zone of totality was only 50 kilometres wide. And news cameras have been on hand to capture many of the 20th century's other great eclipse events.
A total eclipse of the sun, the most awesome of heavenly dramas, finds cameramen in Minneapolis boarding a special solar flight to film the spectacular sky show. 30,000 feet above the Earth, passengers strain forward as the dramatic moment nears. The moon's shadow, traveling at 3,000 miles an hour, devouring the brilliance of the sun. An eerie twilight settles over the Earth. This is it, the total eclipse. A 75-mile wide band of darkness stretching 8,000 miles across the horizon from Nebraska to Pakistan.
Every instrument at the command of science was employed to record the total eclipse of the sun. Mammoth cameras focused on the sky, while an army of astronomers stood by waiting. But they were only a portion of the countless millions who gazed skyward, including the President himself. The latter's position between the sun and Earth caused the complete eclipse over a portion of the Earth directly in its shadow. A band 100 miles wide and 6,000 miles long, over which the lunar shadow moved at the rate of 2,000 miles an hour into the Atlantic Ocean. At this point, twilight descended on the cities in the eclipse belt, and now the moon rapidly approached the climax of the spectacle, the total eclipse, which lasted for 100 seconds.
Most of the people of historic Florence were up before sunrise that morning. Not much hardship, perhaps, as it didn't rise very early over the River Arno in February. Still, it was a bit sooner than most of them are usually about. The attraction, the eclipse of the sun. They had grandstand places, Florence, with its famous observatory, being right in the belt of the promised total darkness. For astronomers, it was the biggest day in several years. They expected to learn a lot, having everything necessary to see it all perfectly. As soon as it became light, it grew dark again. The hens couldn't understand. They went back to bed. And obviously, the poor dog didn't like it. As the sky was clear, the people of Florence had a splendid view. But never mind if you missed it. Stick around. There'll be another eclipse just as good in 1999.
The eclipse will pass over the island's observatories and give an ideal view of the celestial event. It will also pass over some of the best holiday resorts in the world. So it's not just the scientists who are delighted with the venue. Planes are taking off and landing every minute and a half, bringing tens of thousands of tourists.
The light is fading fast. The totality is nearly on us. In a moment you see the moon's shadow rushing across the sea.
Approximate 5 seconds. Approximate 5 seconds.
The sunlight coming through a valley on the moon's rim. The diamond ring. And totality is upon us.
But as the Hercules continues to capture the build-up to the 1999 eclipse, some seem determined to take a rather dim view.
Well, I'm playing golf from 9:42, and about an hour and a half after that we shall have the eclipse. What's going to happen, I've got no idea. We've got some glasses in case we have to use them, but we're basically playing golf.
Well, I think the day is an enormous bore. I'm going to play golf. We're probably going to get a torch and a candle, and I hope I don't sprain my ankle in a sandpit bunker.
I've never seen in the last 50 or 60 years quite such a pantomime as going on now.
Well, I think it's as bad as the millennium and political correctness.
So what is it like to experience a total solar eclipse of the sun? Dr. Francisco Diego from University College London has witnessed 11 of them.
To witness a total solar eclipse, it's a unique experience in your life. The day of the total solar eclipse starts the same as any other day, but you will be waiting for the event, looking at the sun, and exactly at the time predicted, the moon will meet the sun, will start covering it. For some time, you will not notice anything happening around you. The landscape's still the same, there is no darkness, but more than half an hour later, you will look and more than half of the sun has been covered. Then you notice changes. The sun is not hot enough anymore, and the landscape loses its colors. The landscape takes a kind of silvery appearance. Something is really happening. Towards the west, the dark shadow of the moon is rushing towards you at twice the speed of the sun, or even faster. Look at the sun again. A very thin crescent is left. From now on, things happen very quickly. The darkness is increasing minute by minute. The sky goes very blue, very dark, and you can see planets appearing near the sun. Then you see the shadow of the moon almost on top of you. Look at the sun again. The photosphere is nearly gone, and then you can remove your filters, and you will see the diamond ring. The last bit of the photosphere disappears, and then in front of you, the beautiful corona. At the same time, you are inside the shadow of the moon, and you can see the twilight all around you in all directions. You can look at it with the naked eye like this, or even with binoculars. What you see, you will never forget. The solar corona, flying away from the sun, floating all white, beautiful in the deep blue sky. A bit later, the chromosphere will appear, possibly some prominences, and then the photosphere will produce the first bit of light, the second diamond ring. At that point, it becomes too bright, and you have to observe with your safety filters again. Far in the horizon, in the east, the shadow of the moon will be flying away from you, and you will be left with a very special sensation. You have seen a total solar eclipse.
3 paraboloidal reflectors, dishes for short, one of them movable, the other 2 fixed, are a striking feature of the Science Research Council radio telescope at Cambridge.
A total solar eclipse has always been an exciting time for scientists and astronomers. The event provides important information on how our nearest star is evolving.
The telescope is receiving signals from deep space, from astral bodies infinitely more distant than so far recorded. Nowhere does the term astronomical distance mean so much as in this observatory, where they've had signals from more than 8,000 million light-years from the Earth.
A flying observatory races the moon's shadow, with 30 scientists and astronaut Scott Carpenter studying the eclipse of the sun. Streaking along over Canada, the men and women perform 20 experiments in the 2 minutes and 22 seconds they are in the total eclipse. Another part of this massive and highly ambitious probing into the secrets of an eclipse is conducted in the joint U.S.-Canadian station at Churchill, Manitoba. Highly sensitive equipment includes antennas to pick up disturbances along the path of darkness. Rockets record data gathered far above the shrouding of the Earth's atmosphere. From this unprecedented research, meteorologists hope to obtain significant new clues about the sun, perhaps improved methods for predicting solar flares with their radiation danger to astronauts. They might even learn something of the solar effects on triggering weather on Earth. It's the last total eclipse until 1970, and scientists are making the most of it.
An eclipse is the only time that the incandescent outer rim of the sun, the corona, becomes visible. Bright red flares of hydrogen gas, known as prominences, can be seen shooting away from the surface. Astronomers are also able to see the spectacular solar winds, streams of particles flying outwards in all directions. Back on Earth, as 11 minutes past 11 approaches, so offices, shops and factories empty across the country, and people pour out onto the streets to gaze upwards as the magical spectacle reaches its climax.
It's got really freezing cold, and I actually didn't realise it was going to get this cold. It actually seems to be coming in surges. It's not like I thought it would be like a really gradual thing, but it's actually coming in surges. That is absolutely incredible. You could just see the sun through there. That's amazing. There's a little gap in the clouds, almost as if there was something supernatural about that. And the crowd just went wild. That was absolutely amazing. And there's flashes, there's all around, there's photographs going off. Look at this is incredible. That is absolutely amazing. It's getting very, very dark. It feels like as if there was probably about 15 minutes to go now until nightfall.
While cloud obscures the view from the ground, at 11 minutes past 11 exactly, the Hercules captures the spectacular moment of totality. The corona appears, and two huge prominences are clearly visible.
There's cameras going off absolutely everywhere. That is incredible. Woo! That's absolutely bizarre. I never thought it'd be anything like this. You can actually see the towns suddenly lit up in the daytime because all the lights have come on as it got dark. That's really weird. It's really getting very, very dark now. It feels now as if you're pretty well going to bed. I feel a bit tired actually. It's very cold, it's getting very, very dark. I wonder if it will go pitch black. It's now 14 minutes past and it's pretty well dark. You can see in the distance a little bit of light as if it's... Oh look, and it's coming up now slowly. That's amazing.
And 2 minutes, 6 seconds later, this, the first glimpse of the sun emerging from behind the moon, and a classic diamond ring.
Well, it's now coming up to quarter past, and it's now obviously just come out of the total eclipse. It's getting lighter and lighter. Dogs have stopped barking. You can see the street lights actually starting to go off again now. That's really strange. Those street lights must be very confused. People are still taking photographs across the bay. It's getting lighter by the second.
It was rather better than I expected it. I thought, well, this was going to be a completely anticlimax.
We were looking across the hills, it was getting gradually darker and darker, and then we were plunged into darkness. And out of the corner of our eyes, we could see a sliver of the totality.
I feel so high, I even touch the sky. Got to have higher now.
At the very, very last moment, the penumbra showed up through the clouds. And so as we saw the shadow sweeping towards us and to the south of us, everyone started clapping, and we looked up in the sky, and there was the edge, the left-hand edge going this way, and everyone clapped and cheered.
Well, first we didn't saw any sun, but luckily we just get a glimpse. Thank God for that, or else the people up here would be so disappointed. but the Lord have a little mercy on them. And I think they should take this from now on as a lesson and believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who created all things for us.
Well, we were looking up at the sky, and we saw a quick flash of the beginning of the eclipse, just through a little tiny gap in the clouds. And then we saw all the lights come up, and it got dark in Padstow, and all manner of colours, really exciting. And it was a great feeling.
Well, the most important thing was we drank some marvellous Veuve Clicquot.
But we did get our money's worth by seeing the actual eclipse, just for those 2 seconds before and after, but nothing else after that, except for this extraordinary shadow travelling across the country to the south of us, and a huge druid-like congregation looking up into the sky. It was very moving.
And we should appreciate the beauty of nature. Nothing beat nature. Nature is the greatest thing of all.
This is how thousands saw the eclipse in the south of Cornwall at St Michael's Mount. The moon's shadow travelled over the Earth at 1,500 miles an hour. And despite the weather, nature's greatest spectacle didn't disappoint elsewhere either.
I found it very spectacular, very impressive. I'm glad we came here. And I think it was special because it was right out on the edge of Britain.
On us. On us.
They're on us.
I was surprised at how emotional the whole thing was as it suddenly got dark. It was a feeling of humanity clustered together on a hilltop. It was very primeval, almost prehistoric.
It was lovely. I got prickles all up my arms. I felt all peculiar. I'm really thrilled that we came and to see something as well at the end of the day. That was wonderful.
One in a lifetime experience, definitely. It's quite nerve-wracking as well, you know, like getting quite nervous. Then there was that little glimpse of hope and it came out the clouds and we saw it. It was brilliant, definitely.
It's well worthwhile coming to see it. It's very dramatic, and even if the weather wasn't fine and we didn't see the sun, it didn't matter.
Oh, it's just amazing. My stomach turned over, you know. It's the thought of, that's it. Life come to an end.
And the suddenness of the dark coming, you know, just and then all the colours round, just fantastic, I think, you know, and yeah, I can't describe it.
Really, really moving. It made you want to clap and shout, and which we did. It was wonderful. Even Ella was affected by it.
It was like a midnight in midday, really. It just made me feel like it shouldn't be right.
Wow, totally amazing. Never seen anything quite like it. Brilliant.
And the eclipse didn't only touch human emotions.
Oh, he started to get bad about a quarter of an hour before it actually started. He was getting really agitated, like he does when a storm's brewing. And, you know, he just wouldn't stop barking, and he was looking at us constantly.
One realised what Shakespeare meant when he said, "The crow makes winged the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse." In fact, while we were playing on the 10th tee, a lot of rooks went to bed. They were rooks, not crows, but there we are.
And then as it got darker and darker, he was just sort of really agitated. And then afterwards, it seemed as if he calmed down. As soon as it had finished and it started to become light again, he was fine.
The sheep are all acting a little bit... That's really bizarre. They're almost acting... I used to work on a farm, actually, and in the mornings you can see them getting quite excited. And they went dead still for probably about 45 seconds then. And they all went to one corner of the field. And now they're all looking around and as if they've just had a night's sleep. It must have been the quickest night's sleep they ever had in their lives.
Well, we've got 2 dogs and the other one was perfectly okay, but he really reacted to it.
After leaving British shores, the Moon and the Sun took their show on a tour across Europe and onto the subcontinent. By the time it reached France, the skies were clear. Parisians had a good view and could see huge prominences in great detail, some of the best ever seen during an eclipse. On the right-hand side, a piece of material is thrown many miles out from the sun. The diamond ring, and the eclipse is over for France. Thin cloud over Stuttgart produced a rather hazy corona and another diamond ring. In Munich, the sky was totally covered and the crowds were caught in a downpour. By the time it reached the Alps, the sky cleared again. This detailed picture shows off the structure of the corona and more prominences, a particularly magnificent one at 3 o'clock. The shadow moved at its slowest over Romania, and for the first time it was possible to see other planets. Here Venus can be seen, and the longest totality of 2 minutes 33 seconds. Crossing the Black Sea and onto Turkey, the clear skies produced another stunning totality. The shadow moved on, picking up speed with clear skies over Iran, to the great enthusiasm of the assembled masses below. By the time the shadow reached Pakistan, the sun was so low that totality lasted little more than a minute. The last bit of Earth to see the last eclipse of the millennium was India. The sun and moon then went their separate ways. The next total solar eclipse will take place across Central Africa in 2001. Here in Britain, you'll have to wait until 2090 before getting another glimpse of heaven.